Hey, Conspiracy Kyle here. I wanted to talk a little bit about storytelling and, about history in our world. The phrase is often said, history repeats itself. But I feel a more appropriate phrase is that history rhymes. Certain things come back again. It may not always be the exact same way, but it rhymes. And what I mean by that is, if you think about a song, you don't always rhyme the same word with the same word, right? If you say hell, then the next phrase will be, bell or well or something, right? So you're not repeating, you're rhyming. So similar in our world and in storytelling, I'll start off talking about Star Wars, of course, because what else is new? I'm talking about Star Wars again. I hope you guys aren't sick of it by now, but because I love talking about it, I'm very, very passionate about talking about it. With Star Wars and with storytelling in general, Andrew from the Deep Share podcast joined me a few weeks ago, and we talked about, Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, how a lot of stories follow a similar trajectory, from point A to point B to point C. So go check out that episode if you want more context on that specific hero's journey element of storytelling. But in Star Wars specifically, the movies, the trilogies, they all rhyme. They have a rhyming pattern to them if you look at it. So look at the original trilogy, and we'll kind of go movie by movie with the original trilogy and the prequels. A little bit. I'll touch on the sequels a little bit, but I still need to watch those more. I still need to dive into the novels of those to get a greater context on what's happening in those stories, because it seemed a little disjointed to me, but I've been reading the prequel novels, and those have really helped, bring things into greater focus for me and show that there was a larger story that you didn't necessarily see on screen because there really wasn't enough time to do it. You could see more character motivations and things like that. So I hope to be able to do that with the sequels as well. So I'll touch on the sequels a little bit in this conversation, but not too much. The original trilogy, you see Luke Skywalker starting off on a desert planet, right? And desert planet, living with his aunt and uncle, no parents. The prequel trilogy, you see Anakin Skywalker growing up on a desert planet with, one parent, a mother, no father. In The Force Awakens, in the first movie of the sequel trilogy, you see Rey growing up on a desert planet. Once again, no parents. So that kind of in itself rhymes. And of course, in all three of those movies as well, you see a major offensive against a Death Star or Starkiller Base or whatever they attacked above Naboo in the Phantom Menace. There's an offensive against something that they were trying to attack. So that all rhymes. In the second chapter of each movie, you see each of the characters having certain kinds of visions. So in the original Empire Strikes Back, the original trilogy, Empire Strikes Back, you see Luke having Force visions of Darth Vader, where he fights this ghastly vision of Darth Vader, but he also does have visions of his friends in pain. And similarly in the prequels, Anakin Skywalker in Attack of the Clones, the second chapter, he sees visions of his mother in pain. And you can even go into the sequel trilogy, The Last Jedi, which you can probably guess is probably not my favorite Star Wars movie, but even Rey experiences Force visions as well. I don't necessarily have a lot of context around that, but still, same kind of thing applies. And then in the final chapter, this is where some of the parallels get really interesting in the rhyming nature of it. And we'll leave the sequels out because I think it gets a little convoluted once you get to the final chapter. But in Return of the Jedi, you see at the very end, Luke Skywalker has fought Darth Vader. He defeats Darth Vader in battle, and he's about to kill him. And he throws down his weapon and tells the Emperor, "No, I'm a Jedi, like my father before me, Darth Vader." He's like, "I'm a Jedi. I'm not gonna kill him. I'm not gonna take your place." And so the Emperor starts shocking him with lightning. And Darth Vader's standing over to the side, and Luke's saying, "Father, help me, please help me." And Darth Vader is looking back and forth at both of them, and he ends up killing the Emperor and saving his son Luke. Now, flash back to the prequels. In Revenge of the Sith, the final chapter of that trilogy, you see Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader in a similar dilemma, but he makes the wrong decision. He enters Palpatine's office, who we all know is the Dark Lord that's been, machinating all these political crazy maneuvers throughout the galaxy. He sees Palpatine in a struggle with Mace Windu, one of the Jedi Masters, and Mace Windu is saying, he's saying Anakin, Palpatine's a traitor, he's the Dark Lord, you have to kill him. And Palpatine is saying the same thing, no, Mace Windu, the Jedi are evil, and in the end, Anakin sides with Palpatine because he believes that Palpatine can help him save the one that he loves, Padme, his wife, from visions he's been having of death. So you see the rhyming nature there, where in one movie he's conflicted between two people and he makes the right choice. In another movie he's conflicted and he makes the wrong choice. So, the rhyming pattern is what I want to talk about in our world as well. I mean, it's pretty apparent now of what's going on with the control mechanisms in this world. The globalists really want to set us into groups, set us one against the other, vaccinated versus unvaccinated, right versus left. You can put anything in this paradigm here and see how it's set up, but it's all set up for us to fail and for us to fight, and for one group of people to be, made to look worse. And you see, so the unvaccinated, for example, I just did a podcast with friends from False Reality Check, and we talked about this a little bit about the vaccinated versus unvaccinated and how that's the same thing that the Nazis said about the Jews, that they were unclean, etc. You can even go back to biblical times and talk about lepers, how they had to live outside of the colony and they weren't allowed into the villages. So this kind of stuff repeats and repeats and repeats. Well, I guess not repeats, but rhymes, because it's a little different machinations each time this kind of thing comes up. But history has a way of rhyming with itself. History is very important. And I think the other phrase goes, those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it. So I just thought that was very interesting of what's going on in our world today with what's happening with the vaccine and all that stuff, and also how you can see in Star Wars how these stories rhyme and mirror one another, many years distant. So this has been Conspiracy Kyle. May the Force be with you. So last night I went to see a 20th anniversary showing of the original Harry Potter movie. Me and my wife have both been big Harry Potter fans for many years. I remember seeing the original when it came out 20 years ago. She kind of got into it more recently, and we really like and appreciate the films, and it's good. It's good fun, I guess, to a certain extent. But watching it again with, I guess my third eye opened, I'm really noticing a lot of symbolism, story elements, occult. Well, obviously it's about witches and wizards, so obviously there's occult type stuff in there. But there's a lot of stuff that I may be doing some podcast episodes about in the future. So I kind of want to just go over a few of those quick elements for those of you who are into the Harry Potter movies, because I know it has a pretty big following. It's not, of course I don't like it as much as Star Wars, but I do appreciate the world and I know quite a bit about it. So, first of all, very similar to the Force, when you talk about witchcraft as presented in these movies, there's no God, right? There's no supreme being in these universes. It's really just a force, a power of force, of will, what have you, to bend, the world to your will if you have these magical abilities. In Star Wars, the Force, it's not really good or bad. Good people do bad things, bad people do good things, but they use the Force whichever way to manipulate it to accomplish their objectives. You can argue that the Jedi, their objectives were pure, and then you can argue that the Sith's objectives were evil, but they both bended the rules to meet their objectives. The Jedi used the Jedi mind trick, which is basically like a mind control, and the Sith used it as well. Kylo Ren used a kind of a brain thing that he got into people's brains and read their thoughts. So both the Jedi and Sith both use similar things like that. Similarly in Harry Potter, you know, the good characters constantly throughout the first movie and throughout all of the movies are getting into trouble, are not following the rules, are, you know, using magic when they're not supposed to. And it's all kind of, you know, brushed under the rug because, oh, it's done with, you know, good intentions in mind. So it's kind of a slippery slope there that you can kind of break the rules, but it's, you know, for a noble cause. So there's that element of it. You know, then there's the element of, you know, and I have to be very careful when I talk about this. I don't want it to be misconstrued as something that it's not. But the goblin bankers. So Gringotts Bank in Harry Potter is a bank run completely by a race of goblins. You know, they're small little goblin-like creatures. They have these pointy ears and very distinguishable goblin-like features. You know, just think Lord of the Rings, you know, that kind of stuff. Any other mystical fantasy stuff you've seen before, the goblins will kind of, you know, point out to you right away. It is interesting, and, you know, I'll keep this vague. I think you can make your own interpretation of it. You know, there are some families in this world that run all the banking. And that's kind of what they do. In Harry Potter, the goblins, that's what they do. They run the currency. They run the financial world of the witches and wizards and mythical creatures. So that's kind of an interesting parallel there. I'll kind of leave it at that. You can kind of, you know, look into that yourself to know what we're talking about there. Another thing too is the idea of the 4 magical houses. You know, there's Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. And of course, the evil one, Slytherin, their sigil or their, you know, symbol is a snake, which a snake is, of course, a reptile. So you can see right away that the most evil families and most evil people fall under this reptilian banner. So that's pretty interesting. You know, they can talk to snakes, and, you know, they're typically regarded as somewhat evil. So you can make your comparisons there with, you know, some of the major families in the world, or you can get into the whole reptilian thing if you want to. A lot of the families that have been aligned with Slytherin through their school years, like the Malfoy family, they are very, I'm trying to think of the right word here. They're very all about pure blood. You know, they do not want the magical community and them specifically to be diluted with any people that have descendants from anything other than magical people. So, for example, Hermione Granger, you know, one of the main characters in Harry Potter, her parents are muggles, or, you know, non-magic folk, but she's a witch. You know, she can practice magic, but they call her a mudblood because they're saying that she has, you know, they've sullied the race of magic folk by crossbreeding magic folk and non-magic folk. So you can almost think of the Slytherin group as, you know, eugenicists. You know, you can get into Nazi type vibes. You can get into all kinds of vibes when you talk about that. So yeah, I think that's all I had with that. There are some other symbolism type things that I noticed. You know, some 666 kind of stuff laced throughout, and I'll have to dive into it a little bit, but, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of Freemason type stuff in there. For anybody that knows about J.K. Rowling personally, she has a Baphomet tattoo, which, you know, is that demonic creature. It's very it's one of those things you may not know it by name, but when you see the picture of it, you know exactly what it is. It has both male and female organs, and I don't have the exact understanding in front of me or description of what the Baphomet is or what it represents, but it's a demonic occult type creature, so you can kind of see where her mindset was. So anyway, it's just a few quick thoughts on Harry Potter. I think I'll probably dive into more of this stuff going forward. Of course, it's witchcraft, so there's a lot of occult type things in there. So there's a lot to glean into these stories. So I'll come back with more stuff over the next few weeks on this. Kind of a little, side quest thing to my Conspiracy in the Force / Star Wars related podcast. I'll start talking about Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, some other things in the future. So stay tuned. May the Force be with you.